Coach, you want to start with the opening statement about preseason so far?
Yeah, I mean, this is year 33 for me, so it's another notch on the wall or whatever they say. It never gets old. It's exciting. This team is a really athletic, long team that I think has a chance to be really good. I think this team has a chip on its shoulder. I know for a fact if Felder had come back, I vote on the top 20, and I know people that do, that Oakland would have received quite a few votes in the top 20, top 25 AP poll if he had come back. And the fact that we didn't get any votes, and the fact that our players, think that the view of our team is that, Kay Felder was the reason that we were good in that, I think. And maybe that's the truth, I don't know, but they believe that they have something to prove. And so the practice has been very spirited. There's a huge belief in themselves, and they've got something to prove. I think the loss to Wright State that we just talked about has fueled a great summer of growth, a great summer of workouts, a great summer of getting bigger and stronger, and all the things that you need to do to compete for a championship. I think our guys are really on board. So it's been a really, really good preseason.
You talk about Sharon playing point for you this year.
And I think there's in my mind, there's two big question marks about this team. One is point guard play, because we had maybe the best player in school history have the ball in his hands for the last 3 years, every possession. He never came out of the game. He had the ball in his hands every possession. So how do you, migrate over to a team now that we're going to probably play early in the season, the majority of the minutes are at the point we're going to go to a 6'4" player who's never played the point in his life, with Stevie Clark, who's more of a combo than a point, and then Braylon Neely, a freshman. So we're going to have kind of a three-headed point situation. And, for me as a coach to massage that and to learn from it and figure it out, our system's not easy. It's a very high-paced, high-scoring system. We run a lot of sets. There's a lot of intelligence that is needed to play in it. There's a lot of memory. There's a lot of reading of defenses in that. Our offensive system, I compare it a lot to a complicated football offensive system with the reads and things like that. So to have three guys doing it, I've never done that before. To have a player who's 21, 22 years old now in Sharon, who has never played the point doing it, is new for me too. So it's going to be an experience for all of us. He's done very well. We scrimmaged one of those secret scrimmages last Sunday at Central Michigan, and Sharon had 6 or 8 assists. We scored 90 points. He had 88 assists. He did have 6 turnovers, though. But I'm going to have to live with that early, because the turnovers weren't talent turnovers. They were errors in reads. And, it's like a quarterback and a progression of who he passes it to, and all of a sudden he passes it right to the other team. He read his progression wrong. And so that's going to take experience that he doesn't have. So I was very pleased with that. And I think Braylon Neely also is a very, very talented. He's very similar to Felder without the leaping ability. Small, left-handed, fast as all get out. The only question with him is this team is really, really good, in my opinion, and I don't want to just hand it over to a freshman. Like when Felder was a freshman, we were in a transition. His freshman year, before we ever played our first game, we had lost 4 of our top 8 for the season with season-ending injuries. So we knew going into his freshman year that it was our first year in the horizon. There was a lot of question marks. Let's just give him the ball because the next couple of years we'll be better for it. Well, I can't do that with Braylon because of the expectations of this team.
Sharon said he had played a little bit of point in high school, but he also was very good friends with Felder. Did you notice maybe was Felder trying to groom him last year, or was this more of a last-minute decision coming into this year? Did you know Sharon was going to get the opportunity to play point?
No, this happened only when Felder declared to go out in the draft. We weren't grooming Sharon to be anything but, he played the 3 for us last year, and that's where we figured he and Mellon Martez would be the 2 and the 3 and the wings. So when Kay left, it was a late decision. I think it was in beginning of May, and it wasn't. We were in a situation. One of the reasons Stevie Clark is here, we normally don't recruit junior colleges, but we were in a bit of a dire need for a point guard, and so we scanned the country, and that's where we went. And one of the fallback plans was Sharon at the point.
How about Stevie, just in terms of him picking up the offense early on, and kind of your early and overall expectations for him this year?
Well, Stevie's had some issues in life, and our first thing is to get that right. And that's not an easy, that's not an easy thing. You just don't snap your fingers. So there's a lot of mentoring, a lot of, one of the things that I'm really proud of over the years is that we have a really good culture, a really good environment for kids, and the players help with that culture. And so this idea of helping Stevie figure out his life and get back on track, he's really, if you dived into his life story, you would find some very interesting things that normal people don't experience. So we're working on that, and then bringing back basketball to playing at the level that he once played in his life. And he's been floundering around in basketball graveyard for 3 years. And so that's going to take some time. And I see flashes of a really, really good basketball player. But it's more important that we get his life and his habits and his experiences set before we try and force basketball into this. One of the things with basketball, though, is that he's very intelligent, a young man. He understands. He's grasping the offense as well as any young man I've brought here. And again, it's very complicated. And he's grasping it as a first-year player as good as any kid I've ever had. So his intelligence is there. He understands the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes the player he could be before he gets out of here. But it's not going to be tomorrow.
I know you'd love to have Kay back, but making the jump, what does he do for the brand? Seeing him in that Cavaliers uniform, and people talking so highly of him, what has he done for you guys?
Well, I think down the road that's going to play out. Obviously everybody knew about him. I think one of the reasons the attendance, we would have had 12,000 at Joe Louis last year if we'd been in the championship game, is because of the excitement that he brought to the court. And I don't want to take away from our other players, but he was our face. What was he? The top 10 plays on ESPN almost nightly last year. He was SportsCenter loved him, and he brought a brand to Oakland that was worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. I think somebody on our staff looked at it, and it was up over $30 million at one time of advertising that we would have had to pay for to get it. And then it moves on. People wearing Felder jerseys, Cavalier Felder jerseys and things like that. That will never go away. The fact that we've now had 3 NBA players in the last 10 years, I would tell you that there aren't 50 schools in the country that can say that. And so in recruiting, we can, you can be an NBA player. You can make the NBA from Oakland. Isn't just, a shallow thing. It's 3 guys. And he is out there right now, and they're talking about him, and the Cavs seem to love him. Every time I turn around, they've got some promotion with him in it. So, it's a great thing. The day that he said, "I'm going," I let go. When you coach at an Oakland, you spend your whole life, and you have a chance to have a team that might be ranked a preseason, getting top 25 or close to it. That doesn't come along that often. So when he, it was tough to know that he wasn't going to stay. But when the decision was made that he wasn't, now we were all on board with helping him, getting him to move on to life, and then all on board with making this team, our 50th team, to be the best team it can be.
Greg, last year, you were talking about all this, there was a lot of individual attention with Oakland last year. A few of your players talked about, they seem like there is a very good chemistry, brotherhood with this team. How do you see it?
Oh yeah. I think they loved being on SportsCenter, making the pass to him, dunking, and they loved the attention that Oakland got. But I think when he left and they read the things that that we're not going to be very good and we're not this and that, I think that really got to them. I think they were surprised by it. I think they're bound to prove a point, and they should be. But when the games start, That's all last year, and that's all forgotten, and we're moving forward. You know, that's what we have to do.
What do you gotta get from Martez? Obviously, he's a quality player.
Well, you know, Martez, I personally think he'll be our next NBA player. I think we have a couple. There's a young man sitting out that won't play this year that'll play next year that is also probably borderline first-round draft choice. So we've got more NBA players coming through, and I think Martez is going to be that next guy. He had 37 in that scrimmage Sunday. He's really, I've found with transfers, their second year is always way, way better than their first year. And every kid from all the way back to Reggie Hamilton to, you know, Vova Severovic, who none of you would remember, but years and years ago. That first year is always a tough year. And in Martez's case, he came in at Christmas. And his first game, he had 18, and we beat Washington at Washington, like we pounded them. And all of a sudden, you know, the eyes were this big, and then we play Michigan State, and he doesn't have quite as good a game, and, you know, but, you know, we should have won that game, or we had a chance to win that game. And I think coming in at the halfway point is very difficult to do. I think he did it as well as anybody, but it was still Felder's team. And now we're a team that's searching for an identity, and I think he's really grasped it. I can be the guy that's our leading scorer. I can be the go-to guy when the game's on the line. Because for 3 years when the game was on the line, we went to Felder or Bader, you know. And now here's Martez, and I really believe that he's going to have a year that's going to surprise a lot of people. People are going to say, where'd this kid come from?
I realize Isaiah Brock has gotten a lot of attention. When you approached him when you were overseas, he didn't really excel in basketball coming out of high school. He was more of a lacrosse player. What made you really approach him about playing, or did he approach you? Could you just kind of recall when you met Isaiah?
Well, the story of that has nothing to do really with basketball. It has everything to do with, you know, I'm in Kuwait, and I'm supposed to be the one there that's supposed to be helping these soldiers get through what they're doing. And I meet Isaiah, and his story, I want to hear his story, not me talking. And his story, I mean, I don't know if you know the story, but I mean, imagine you're 20 years old, you're in 130-degree weather, you're in full uniform, you're facing the meanest people in the world, the Taliban, the ISIS, those people, and your job is to go into the battlefield and get the dead and pull them out and then sew them up. I mean, do the mortuary thing to them, put them in a casket, get the American flag, iron it, put it over. I mean, if you watch the news almost weekly, there's a clip of a plane that lands and the back of the plane opens and out comes. That's what Isaiah Brock did. And so I'm there and I'm hearing this story, and, you know, and he's 6'8". I don't know if he's any good. I had 2 women on my team. You know, it was pickup basketball. He looked athletic, and he was a foot taller than everybody. But his story is what moved me. The fact that he wanted to get a degree, and the reality of it was, I don't know if he could ever play basketball, but I knew if he was on my team, that my players would have an unbelievable leader that could teach them life stories. Because when I get mad and yell at somebody and they got to go run a line drill, and Isaiah Brock was out running in 130-degree, he can tell them what really life is about. And so that whole reason was to bring him here. Once he got here, that athleticism's pretty good. And he's like a sponge. He wants to be good. And he's going to be a good player. He's going to be good. He's going to probably play 5 to 8 minutes this year, and by the time he's a junior, he's going to be a really good player. And one of the reasons he's going to be really good is because of his life lessons, and he doesn't want to be that. He wants to achieve and be good. I mean, where he came from has taught him, you know.
Is it a raw talent at this point? I mean,
Well, he's got raw athleticism, yeah. I don't know if he's got raw talent. He struggles offensively, but he jumps like an NBA player. He jumps the second time quickly, like, you know. He's got long arms, he blocks shots. He's going to help us.
Nick was a guy that I think you were trying to harp on to be a vocal leader. Last year, you guys were looking for a vocal leader.
Mhm.
You talked about Isaiah too. Do you feel like Martez might be someone that's going to step forward in that role? Do you think it's going
No,
to be that guy? Or?
no. Sharon is the leader of the team. He's the only senior. Sharon's one of the greatest young men I've ever been around. Not only is he a great student and a great person, but he's a very good leader. Nick is our spiritual leader. Nick Daniels wants to play at Oakland, and that's all he cares about. I have a new coaching staff, and Nick didn't shoot it very well in the scrimmage at Central, and one of the guys on the coaching staff said, well, maybe we ought to say something to him to not worry about that. And I looked at the guy and goes, you don't know Nick Daniels. The only number that Nick Daniels cares about is that it was 90 to 83. He could get it, that he was 0 for 5 or what. He probably doesn't even look at his numbers. All he cares about is Oakland. So when you have a kid like that who's a veteran, that really helps your team. And so that's who Nick is. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. You can see the disappointment on his face. You can see the happiness on his face. He's a very important piece to our puzzle.
With Jalen, do you notice that he bulked up, that he gained 10 pounds? Does it look like he's stronger in his butt?
Yes, very much so with the ball around the basket. Getting to the free throw line a lot more, taking the hit, and ball's not popping out when he's getting the hit. And he's going to get hit a lot this year, because we don't have, with our point guard, you're not going to see the fancy dump-off pass to the dunk. There'll be some of that, but, we'd have that 3-4 every game. And that's not going to happen. Jalen's going to get hit a lot this year, and he's had to get stronger, and he did.
Defensive rebounding, a couple of your players after the practice talked about that's been one main concern. Is that something you feel that really needs to be addressed, or is there anything in other areas you are eyeing right now?
A little bit ago, I said there were two things, and then I only talked about the one. The second one is the rebounding. Until we do it, and Central Michigan only had 6 offensive rebounds against us, but they're a perimeter-based team. They're not a team that's going to not jam it down your throat. So we still have to play a few of those games. But based on that scrimmage we had, I was very pleased with it. We out-rebounded them maybe by 12, and we only gave up, I think, maybe 7 offensive rebounds. So that was good. But that is a concern, a real concern of mine.
How hard is it to build a culture of unity on a team with 8 transfers during the summer? Well,
you don't build that. They come into it and it exists. That's 33 years of building. And it's 33 years, a lot of my friends, they come and they watch a game, and then I'll play cards with them or go to dinner with them and they look at me and they think I'm bipolar or something because I'm completely different here than I am there, And what I try and explain is that, it's a tough job to build a culture, and the only way that you can do it is to be consistent with it. And whatever your culture is, you have to believe in it and live it, and then you have to demand that it stays that way. And with kids, the way kids change and the way our culture and society has changed over the years, we have to change too. And so the one consistent, though, is demanding and expecting excellence and expecting it in your life first, not, that basketball takes care of itself, that, it's all about how you live your life and your habits and those types of things. And when you have expectations and the players have expectations, a transfer comes in, he has to live by that, or the players call him out. All right? It's not unusual that I'll have a player in my office that's a senior and a veteran saying that this guy's not doing what we expect him to do, and I want this guy punished. They're coming to me. And so it's a culture that you've built for years, and then you hopefully that it embraces it.
When Sharon did transfer, he mentioned it was a little bit of a culture shock for him initially. Have you noticed maturation process from him, or was he on board with Oakland as soon as he made that transfer? How have you seen him develop, in that sense?
Well, Saturday night at the hotel before the scrimmage on Central, because we have a bunch of new players, Sharon held a players-only meeting where he let the new players know what it's going to be like when the games start and it's live, and how I'm going to treat them and how I'm going to coach them. So obviously he's not only embraced the culture, but he's now the Pied Piper spreading the word. And so, you know, I can get after some kids. And but the veterans know and understand it, and he was the one, you know, I'm sure that when his first year, somebody else had that meeting and did it, so now he was taking for. And again, that's just the culture of how we do things.
How good is this team? Kind of compare and contrast to other teams you had in like the last 10 years.
Well, I think that we have to play because I have concerns with a couple of those things. But I will tell you this, last year I stood in here and said it's the deepest talent we've ever had, but we had gone to Spain, but what I didn't know at that time was the youth, you know, the Brechtings and Cumberlands and those guys who weren't just ready. And now they've got a year experience, and we've got, you know, 1 through 11 there's no question that we have a very good player, 1 through 11. The deepest that any team I've ever had with experience. I think that it's a team that's got a chance to be special. Yeah, I really do. I really do. Are we a year away? I don't know. We only have one senior. Usually your greatest teams have 3 or 4, you know, seniors who are playing with this is the end, this is my last chance, and every day of practice, and that they bring that to the table. I don't have that because I only have one senior. So maybe we're a year away, maybe not, but we're going to be very exciting, and I think we have a chance to be really good.
How about the schedule? You guys go to Alaska, but other than that, you're pretty much here. You guys get Georgia to come in too?
Our schedule, you can give credit to or blame my athletic director, okay? When Jeff got here, I had a philosophy of scheduling. He had a different philosophy. We met, we talked, and it wasn't one conversation. It was a long-term conversation. He and I have developed what I think is a tremendous professional friendship and also a tremendous professional being, if that makes sense. And so what he wanted, like I said earlier, we had a chance, you know, with Felder and all the hype and everything, to be preseason ranked and that. And we wanted to change the philosophy and put a schedule together like a high major team would have a schedule. And if you look at most high major programs, they're going to play, we got to 17, they're going to play 20 home games. And he invested money into doing this. We're fortunate that Georgia had these Michigan players and that we were able to massage when they come to Oakland to be this year. And we thought we had a chance to get off to a great start, play a lot of home games, get the community revved, and maybe get off to an 8-0, 10-1 record when we're going to Michigan State, and maybe then we are ranked. And that was the philosophy of this schedule. Well, we still have to play the season in this schedule, and at the end of the year, we'll probably look back and say, okay, playing all these home games. There's the history of our program. We don't draw well in November and December. We draw extremely well in January and February. Our big games, Detroit's a big game community. When we have a big game, man, you can't get a seat in here, and it's an unbelievable environment. But then we could be playing. We played Georgia State a couple years ago with Hunter's kid who got drafted by the Celtics, and there was nobody here. So can we change that culture that we can get people here in November, December? Well, we thought we were going to have this marquee player in the country, and let's try it. So that's why the schedule was put out. At the end of the year, next year's schedule, we play Kansas, Syracuse, Georgia, Michigan State, Houston. So it's back to that, but you have to schedule in advance. We'll probably make a decision at the end of this year based on how this year goes and the schedules. What philosophy do we really want? I've been a big believer in playing everybody anywhere, but I'm not sure we're at the point in our maturation from Division II to a Summit League power to now the Horizon League. I'm not sure where we're at and what makes sense. So at the end of this year, we'll take a good look at it.
Coach, you mentioned that you have the most experience you've ever had with a coaching staff, but yet Drew Valentine is the only one who has 1 year experience on your staff. Can you talk a little bit about your coaching staff this year?
Yeah, it is. It's amazing that we were able to put this staff together. I had a prominent Hall of Fame coach say to me that your coaching staff is, I don't want to exactly quote him because I'll hurt some other people's feelings, but he raved about our coaching staff. I got Dan Hipsher, who he and I played together with in college. We were high school foes, and then we went to the same school and played with each other. We roomed together and all that kind of stuff. And for years, we'd call each other back and forth through our careers, and we always said one day we might end up coaching together, but never really believed that would happen. Cornell Mann, who had been at Iowa State. Iowa State's coach got an NBA job, and he couldn't take the whole staff with him. The new coach came to Iowa State, wanted his staff, and here's a guy that's recruited Monte Morris, who might be the player of the year in the country this year, and people like that to Iowa State from Michigan. And now he's out there as a free agent. And Jeff Konya was good enough to up the bargaining price for me so that we could pay to get this young man in here. And then you got Drew Valentine, one of the greatest leaders I've ever had, who the players love, and that. So all of a sudden, I've got this star-studded coaching staff, and pretty excited about it. It's been really good. I mean, they're very knowledgeable. They do a great job in practice, and it's been a really good thing for me.